Hi, this is David, and I want to do this video on abuse. Those, and I'm gonna focus this. I'm gonna focus this on if you're a female and you're being abused by any male. I'm going to try to focus this on what I know and what I think, and maybe resources for you to get out of those situations. One of the things we've seen, and I don't have any statistics how many Mormon missionaries come home and are abusive to their wives. I do know this, that any time that you have deprived a man between whatever 14 and the rest of his life from sexuality, you've got a ticking time bomb. You've got a ticking time bomb. There are times in our relationships and in the world where you've got, and let's take it from the missionary point on. When you've got a young man that's 18, 19 years old, and supposedly he's had no sex and he's been sexually active for 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 7 years, and then you send him out into the world and put another 2 years on him of no sexuality. This is a person that is inclined to come back with a feeling of entitlement, that he has sacrificed so much, so long, that you become pretty much a sexual object if you're a female. I've had a couple of videos, comments, that have kind of broken my heart. Being an old counselor, I guess, have triggered in me a need to give you the best counseling advice. Counselors usually don't give one-sided advice. This is not the way we do things. We generally are trained to say, well, how do you feel about that? And then guide that person through their own thought process to come to their own conclusions. It's a misnomer that counselors tell you what to do. We don't. But because this is one-sided, and I don't want to get back into counseling, I'm retired, but when you send a man out in that kind of a situation and he comes home, I'm going to say that most missionaries are probably not abusers. But those that turn into abusers really use the church as a hiding place. They have their suit on and their tie on Saturday and Sunday mornings for meetings, and they'll go off with a family that looks like everything is intact. These days, abuse has kind of widened. It used to be in the old days, you had to pretty much hit somebody and mark somebody to be abusive. That has expanded now to verbal abuse and emotional abuse and physical abuse. I think verbal abuse, and again, this is just one-sided, folks. You gals that are going to watch this, it's just one-sided. And it's just one man. It's just one man's opinion. You really need to get on the internet. You really need to get with your girlfriends. You need to get with competent counselors and get some of these things resolved. But a verbal abuse, I think, is an ongoing. Now, just a man yelling at his wife going, "You're an idiot, I wish you were dead, don't let the door hit you in the ass going to live with your mother." One or two things like that over 30 years of marriage is inappropriate, but I don't think it's abuse. I think what abuse is, verbal, is that when you constantly, over and over, now I know when you all get to court, you say it goes on every day. That's the tactic of a divorce court. But sit down and realistically look at it. If you've got a spouse that at least every other day is calling you an idiot or making direct comments about your intelligence, your boobs aren't right, you're a bad sex partner, you're ugly, why don't you, lose 100 pounds. If you've got a person that's a mate, that's not really a mate, saying those things to you over and over and over. It's like a cult. When you hear that in repetition, just like when you hear Mormonism in repetition, pretty soon you begin to believe that. And that can be very damaging to someone that has weak or low self-esteem to start with. And a lot of Mormon girls, I hate to say it, but do go into marriage with low self-esteem. They don't know too much about the world, and they've been trained to marry basically the first missionary that says, I want to marry you. So if you've got a spouse that is saying those kinds of hateful things over and over and over, and you go to bed crying, or you know, go in the bathroom and cry and whatever, and he knows that he's making you cry, that's not a mate. That is a cruel human being that basically you need to get away from. Now, believe me, I am not saying every girl who gets yelled at should get a divorce. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Abuse is an ongoing, long process that you have to evaluate over a period of time. You know, now if this goes on for, I would say if it goes on for 6 months or a year, that's abusive. That's too long. Everybody, especially men, get upset. And we have tempers, and sometimes we say things, slam doors and throw things maybe. Well, women throw more things than we do. But that happens in every relationship. So if that's happened in your relationship 3 times and you've been married 20 years, you're exaggerating. That is not abuse. That is normal kinds of anxiety and normal kinds of poor responses. I think one of the things that women forget to say in these situations too is they have a little bit more of a mouth than a man does. A woman can say some things that are very, very hurtful, and the man will not go in the bathroom generally and cry, but he'll keep it and save it, and he gets more and more angry, and then before you know it, now we go into emotional abuse. Okay, emotional abuse, to me, just to me, ladies, is when a man controls you. You can't go anywhere. You can't say anything. He's going to tell you how to dress in the morning, what underwear to wear, what hairdo you're going to wear, how much money is in your purse. Are you allowed to carry a credit card? Are you allowed to go out with your girlfriends? Are you able to go to the library and spend some time alone, or go to the park and take a walk, go swimming without him? Now, I have a friend who happens to be a polygamist, and FLDS, and he controls his wife like, you know, it's a toy, like a robot. She's not allowed to go anywhere, say anything, do anything, or dress, or makeup, or whatever. Now, to me, that's emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is when you can't be yourself. There's some of you that really like to do arts and crafts. There's some of you that really like to play with your kids and go places and talk with your girlfriends. There's a lot of you that want individual space and time. Throw the kids on him, and you're going to go out and go up in the mountains and take some pictures or whatever. So I see more emotional abuse going on, especially with Mormon men. Control, control, control. They can't control themselves. They can't control their kids, but they're going to control their wives. So I think emotional abuse is basically when you can't be yourself. Now, don't go all the way over on one side or all the way over on the other side. It's down the middle. In a marriage, there's usually kids, and there's usually work responsibilities for both the husband and the wife, and there's compromise. You know, I wanted to be James Bond, but a couple things held me back. One was my intelligence, another was my good looks, and the other one was I was married and had 14 kids. That slows James Bond down. So be reasonable. You can't always, if you wanted to be the person you really wanted to be, for God's sakes, don't get married. Don't get married, because half of your life now is devoted to another human being. It doesn't like what you do, doesn't want to do what you want to do. I'm going to take a ride today, which I don't want to do, to Temple Square. And my wife, who's a sweet little LDS girl, I'm an atheist, we get along fine in the marriage because I do these things and she does these things. She wants to take some pictures of the lights at Temple Square, which is your pesos and your tithing money, putting, I think it's 3 million lights on the trees. Well, I don't want to go to Temple Square. I don't want to go see the lights. I don't want to fight the traffic. I don't want to look for a parking place. I don't want to hear the kids yelling in the backseat. But you know what? I'm going to do it. So in every marriage, there's going to be compromise. You're not going to be totally doing everything you want. I'd rather be sitting here doing a video than going to Temple Square. God, that's, you know, that brings back triggers. It makes me feel constipated for years. So be reasonable. And you know, when we're young, we're stupid. We just don't know much in our 20s and 30s. We think we do, but we don't. Until you hit your 50s, you don't really appreciate your parents and what they've done for you. And so what I'm saying is use wisdom beyond your years. That, yeah, a man, he wanted to go hunting and he wanted his 4x4 and he wanted to be with his buddies up in the woods and stay overnight in Vermont. And he can't. He's got to go to work. And he's got a project. And one of the kids is sick and in the hospital. As a parent, we're always giving and giving and giving. I had 2 kids sick last week. High temperatures and throwing up and whatever. I sat here 24 hours right here while they laid in bed, and I got the medications and did the temperatures and did the ice on the head and the whole thing. I would have rather been out driving my new car, being cool, hanging out the windows, looking for chicks. Well, I used to do that. So what I'm saying is use your wisdom, use your knowledge, and use your common sense. And be careful as a Mormon. If you're a Mormon and you've been a Mormon most of your life, your common sense is probably not there. It's probably not there. The cult saps that away over a period of years and years. So emotional abuse and just being a spouse, they're close. They're close. There should be times. My wife came to me the other day and she says, I have a friend that's coming from the Philippines and she's going to land in Oklahoma. Can I drive to Oklahoma? And I said, sure, I don't care. You can drive to Oklahoma. And that's one of the compromises, again, I make. She likes to go out with her girlfriends. She always comes back more sweet and more kind. She can speak her language with her friends, and she can do arts and crafts, and she's taking English classes, which she loves, where she's got a whole classmate room full of people speaking languages from all over the world. And so what I'm saying with emotional abuse is be careful. I know when you go to court, all the girls are going to say, he emotionally abused me. Well, emotional abuse many times to a female is him just not being kind and loving you the way you want to be loved, so you call that emotional abuse. But if you have your freedom, if you can get in the car and say, you know what, I'm taking off for an hour or two, I don't have to tell you where I'm going. And if I spend 20 or 30 bucks, you know, if we spend more than that, usually we'll say something to each other about it. But if you can't do that, and if you don't have access to transportation or a car, or getting on the bus, or going over to your mom's house or your girlfriend's house, and just saying, I want to spend 3 or 4 hours and just chat and talk, if you can't do that, then you've got somebody controlling your life. I think that's emotional abuse. When I want to leave the house, I can leave the house anytime I want. I give the courtesy to say, I'm going out for a couple of hours, I'll be back. I don't want anyone to think I'm so upset that I'm just leaving and I may not be upset. That's not fair for men or women. Tell them you're coming back. Your spouse, you as a female, should be able to stop and get you know, a McDonald's ice cream or you know, a pizza or something for yourself. You can spend money on yourself, and you shouldn't have to explain that. Whether you're an at-home mom or you're a working mom, you are making 50% of the money. If you're an at-home mom, give him the children for a week. You'll see. I had 5 kids as a single parent. My God, it was the hardest damn job I ever had in my life, and I've worked high-rise construction. It's a nightmare. So if you're an at-home mom, you're certainly making half of the money, at least. And he's making half the money. So you both should have a right to a little bit of money for, you know, I want to get my money's worth. I went over to Lowe's and I didn't ask her. I said, you know, I'm buying an American flag. It was $1. And she didn't emotionally abuse me. She let me do that. So now we come to the area that just, the other areas are hurtful. The other areas of verbal and emotional abuse certainly are hurtful. And to a female, they're much more hurtful than a man can imagine. We don't usually have our feelings hurt. If our wife says, you know, you're really bald and ugly, you say, okay, so what? Men don't think too much of that. But if you say to your wife, you know, you're bald and you're ugly, she starts to cry. That really hurts her. A lot of men don't know that. And I have to admit, I didn't know that till I got into my 50s. I didn't know that. I was so damn busy just trying to support a family and keep a house together. I, a lot of times, treated my wives like a man. I thought that, you know, they ought to have a thicker skin. You know, you really got a fat ass this morning. Does that dress make you look like a fat ass? It does. It does. Because you do. I mean, that is emotional abuse. When we're young and stupid, we tend to do that more. And we do hurt the girls. Women and girls really get their feelings hurt, especially when a man who they worship and who they think is their mate and their soulmate, when they say, gee, you got a fat ass, that really hurts a girl. And I'm sad to say, when I was young, I was an idiot. I was like most men. Nowadays, when she says, you know, do you like this dress? And I would say, well, if I was blind. No, I wouldn't say that. No. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be better. Now, let's go to the hard one. And I've thought about this. I have a little person that is sweet as can be, that is one of my viewers, a subscriber. And she does wonderful videos, arts and crafts and flowers and all kinds of beautiful things. And I don't know what it is. I don't, you know, my whole life, ever since I was 20, people have confided in me, have said things that they generally wouldn't say to other people. I don't know why. Probably because I keep it confidential, and probably because I don't judge. I don't judge. I wasn't there. I can't possibly judge. I had a little gal that was in 6th grade, about 4 months ago. And I was sitting out on the patio, and she was playing with one of my children, and she came out on the patio, and she started telling me about her life. Now, she just came to the United States, and she speaks Chinese, but she speaks perfect English, too. And so I just sat there and listened, and she told me, she said, well, my dad hates me. Okay, and being a counselor, I would not say anything or react. Say, okay, why does your dad hate you? And she says, because I'm illegitimate. My parents weren't married, and he hates that I was born. Now, that's a heavy load. Golly, that's a heavy load on a 6th grader. And I don't know why. My whole life has been like that people have come to me and confided in some of the personal difficulties that they've faced. I want to say to that person, and of course I keep that confidential, and expand it to any other females here that are being abused. Now, I'm going to take this from a slant, ladies, that may be just a little bit different, okay? Because I'm going to be truthful. I'm not going to say, boy, if your husband's beating on you, go call the DA. You know, that's what your girlfriends are going to say. That's what your girlfriends are going to say, okay? I hope I have some wisdom and judgment over this lifetime. And I'm going to take this from a little bit different slant. Let me give you an example. My second wife, her father was an abuser to the mother. Now, the mother had a fat ass, and she was a hoarder, and she was filthy. And that is kind of hard to live with, I guess. I've never had, well, I had his daughter. And I'm not going to go into that, but she followed after her mother a little bit. And the father used to beat on the mom, and the kids saw that, and it hurt the kids, and it hurt the mom. And he finally actually put her at the front of the door and put his foot on her butt and kicked her out of the house. Well, he went down and he got custody of the kids because she was such a pig. And she lived the rest of her life as a hoarder and a pig. Now, he went out and he got married again. Married a little more upper class girl. And he hit her. the first time. And the first time he hit her, she looked at him and she says, if you ever lay a hand on me ever again, I'm leaving this house. He never touched her. He never touched her again the rest of her life. Now this leads me into what I'd like to say. If you've been abused, you're going to have to look first. Now I don't mean all the way, because the abuser has his problems too. But the purpose of my video is to help females if I can. If you're being abused, you trace back into your childhood some of the things that happened to you. Men many times look for abused women. They look for women who are sexually vulnerable. They look for women that they can dominate. When they're dating a girl, if he says, "No, we're going here. Go get your hair fixed." A lot of girls will say to him, "Screw you. This is the hair I'm wearing. Like it or get out of the car." Well, he won't date them anymore. He's going to find somebody that has a childhood that has difficulties. Now, one of the things I have found, and I know this to be a fact from education and experience, if you as a female have a very close relationship with your dad, and he can hug you and kiss you and give you legitimate affection, you will marry later in your life, and you will marry someone like your father. Now, it doesn't always look like your father when you first meet him and when you first date him. Girls and boys will marry their mother or their father type personality if those are good people. Girls, if you don't hug them, you don't kiss them, you don't put your arms around them, you don't compliment them, as they grow up, they become like the boys. Women suffer from lack of affection. Men, boys, growing up, suffer from the lack of sex. That's why boys masturbate so much, and a lot of girls do. About 67% of the girls do. I've tried very hard, and I've done pretty well. My girls, I still have a 13-year-old. I had a 16-year-old, Amy. She was a daddy's girl, and she married at BYU later in her years, not right out of high school. And her and I always were able to hug each other and kiss her on the cheek and be affectionate. I have a 13-year-old right now, and we still will sit on the couch and watch scary movies together, and she cuddles up and will hug me, and I'll go over to the kitchen table and kiss her on the forehead and say, "I love you, you look nice this morning." If you come from a family like that as a girl, you're going to be pretty damn solid. You're going to be pretty damn solid, and you're going to see the shit guys, because they won't compliment you. They will tease you when you're dating them. They will make fun of you. They'll go, "Oh, I didn't mean to hit you, sorry." You'll sometimes see that. Now, sometimes you won't. Sometimes those guys can hide that shit very, very deep, and it takes a lot for you to trigger something, and then out it comes. Now, I'm going to say this real clear. It is not anyone's fault that they're getting abused. It's like saying in the old days, if you got raped, you were dressed funny and you shouldn't have been doing that. It doesn't work like that in a million years. But I am saying that you ladies that are being abused, you may want to look back on your relationship in your family. If you were raised in a family with no father, that is going to bring on a certain amount of vulnerability, because the first boy that puts his arms around you and kisses you, you haven't had that for 20 years or whatever, 15 years, and you're just going to think you're in love. You're in love. This little gal that confided in me that she was illegitimate, she plays with my kids, and she's over here at the house a lot, and she is always I pick those kids up at school too, and she's always telling me about her boyfriends and always telling me this and that like I'm her father. Well, she didn't have a father, and you have to be very, very careful. And if men watch this, you have to draw those lines. You get a young girl that thinks you're the dad and wants to snuggle you and hug you and tell you confidential things. And before you know it, you're over the boundary now. You've got another child, someone else's child there. That's not your child, and you have no rights to go beyond just kind of listening and smiling and saying yes and yes. And when she's tried to, put me in more of a role than a father, I've had to push her back and say, why don't you go play the piano, or why don't you do this or that? So these little girls that don't have fathers are looking for a father. And anyone that comes along as a marriage partner, they're marrying their father and another man that's a stranger. So be careful if you didn't have a father. Be careful if your father was absent or emotionally absent. Now, there's a lot of fathers, and it's taken me a long time. God, I'm telling you, over a half a century, because I've had a lot of girls. I got a 9-year-old right now, and she's growing up, and she's going, Dad, when am I going to get my period? I go, honey, it's going to be a year or two. Don't worry about it. It'll happen when it happens. I still, with my 8 or 9-year-old, I still cuddle her and tickle her and roll around and, play like she's a child. But once these girls start getting boobs, then most fathers, we don't know what to do. They are our little girl, but they are a little woman too. And it's not quite as appropriate to roll around on them and tickle them. And, you can hug them and you can kiss them and be affectionate. But I want to tell you, as a man, women, that it's difficult for us to see that line. This is a little girl that we used to, bathe in the bathtub. This is a little girl that we may have helped toilet train. This is a little girl that was always a little girl, and now she's grown into a preteen or a young woman. So you'll see, ladies, if you came from a house where your dad doesn't have confidence in himself or doesn't trust himself, he will pull away from you. He will pull away from you. I've seen this more than, this is probably more often than anything else, that many men don't know what to do with a daughter that has boobs. He goes, oh, I don't want to get and they don't know, because they didn't come from a family or come from a background where they're pretty confident. I just want you to know that from a man's point of view, a dad many times doesn't know what to do when his little girl starts growing up. And my little 9-year-old, she'll come in and say, Dad, is this pink or red? Which looks better? And I'll go, pink. Oh, okay. And she loves that attention. And then she wakes up in the morning, she goes, mini pancakes, mini pancakes. Now, she can cook. She can cook her own mini pancakes. But she likes me to do that because she knows that Dad will still do that for her, even though she's growing up. And then, as they get older and turn into a teenager, you girls all came through your teenage years. I've got one with an iPod in her ear 24/7. She says no all the time to me. Her friends a little bit are more important to me. But, she'll still come up and hug me, and she'll, sit in my chair with me, and we'll watch movies together. So, ladies, go back into your childhood. Go back into your childhood and take a look. Take a look at your parents, especially your father, and see how he made you vulnerable, that you just wanted to be married so bad, and you just wanted to be affection, and of course, men, other than children, we know what affection is with children, but a full-grown woman, affection very quickly grows into sex. So be aware that you may have been growing up vulnerable. Now, the other thing is that look at the boys that you dated. If you had low self-esteem, you probably dated some real assholes. Guys that, I don't know, I don't want to say every guy that smokes and drinks and, is rough and tattoos is a bad guy. They're not. But there's more likelihood that they are. And if that's the only guys you can get in junior high or high school, you got to look back and say, well, I was vulnerable then, wasn't I? So now you go into your late years and late teenage years, and you're thinking of getting married. Well, a lot of times those girls with low self-esteem are not real popular in high school because the boys now are getting mature, and they're starting to take a look do I want this woman the mother of my children? They may pass over you. You may be a wonderful, great person, and you may still not be, you know, sexually all over the place, but they'll avoid you a little bit. So now it puts you in a period of desperation. Desperation. A missionary comes home, and he's desperate. God, he's had an erection for 7 years that he's not quite sure what to do with, and you look like a pretty good place to put it. And he has probably some low self-esteem because of his mission and some of the other things he's been through. And so now you've got these two people that have low self-esteem and poor ego development, and he wants sex and you want affection. Well, he'll say to you, you know, let's marry, and oh, your little heart goes pitter-patter, and suddenly, you know, all your dreams have come true, and you have the white dress, and you go to the temple, and it looks like you've been saved. Here's the prince on the white horse. Now, you didn't date him very long at all. I can tell you that. I can tell you that. You need to date a person, and I'm speaking to the men and the women here, but especially the women. You need to date a man long enough to see him angry. You got to see him angry. If he jumps up and down and, you know, swears and kicks the rocks, that doesn't hurt anything. But if he starts screaming at you obscenities and starts screaming that you're a bad person and this and that, and even may hit you or slap you, good Lord, you got to have shit for brains to keep going. You got to have shit for brains to keep going, because what's happening is that he has sensed your vulnerability. Men can do that. You know, women are funny with their senses, and men are too. Women, if a man has been with another woman, don't even try to hide it. You can take showers, you can bathe in gasoline. I don't give a shit what a man does, but if you've been with another woman, your wife will smell it. Your wife will smell it, her pheromones, and your pheromones, she'll smell that, and you're in deep shit. You're in deep shit. Well, girls, men have a certain a sensory system too. And we can always find the girls that are desperate. And they'll let you put their hands, your hands down their blouse and up their legs. They're the girls that you can do anything to because they want to get married. They want to attach to you. Date a man long enough to know him. And in the LDS Mormon church, you can't do that. In the Mormon church, you girls are trapped because you can't go to his house and sleep with him. You don't know what kind of a sexual partner he's going to be. You don't know how demanding he's going to be. You haven't fixed breakfast. You haven't woken up and seen each other ugly. You don't know what his physical hygiene is. You don't know shit. You are just jumping off of a black cliff. What can I say about that? Other than, I don't want my girls that way. Now, would I let my girls live with somebody before they married him? I'm going to say in my old age, pretty close. Pretty close. I prefer that my girls not have sex until they're legally married, but their vaginas they own. They can do whatever they want with their own vaginas. I've given them advice. I've given them morality speeches, etc. But you know, I've been married to 6 different women. 6 different women. And so I've had some sexual experience, perhaps beyond one man who has had one woman. All girls are different. They're all different. Their desires, the way they look, the way they act, the way they think. If you're hardcore, what you want and what you don't want, you jump off of that black cliff, you don't know. He may say, you know, let's put the mirrors and the trapeze up in the bedroom, and you'll go, no, I'm not doing the mirrors and the trapeze, and he's got the video cam. No, you're not. And that's important to him. Now you got a problem. Now you got a problem. You couldn't see it coming. Now you can talk a lot about it, and I guess that's where my advice would come. You need to have some serious conversations and say to a fiancé, you know, what do you know about sex, and what are the things you want to do or try, and how do you feel about me saying no, or here's the things that I like about sex. And are you willing to do these things or not do these things? Now, these are not ordinary conversations that married or pre-married couples will have, but you need to. If you don't want to be abused, for God's sakes, you quiz him like there's no tomorrow. And then you evaluate what he said. And once you're into the marriage, you hold him to what he said. People do change, and he may get more mad. Well, I didn't know I was going to have unemployment. Bam, bam, slaps you around for it. Well, you can't avoid every abusive situation, but you can avoid a lot of them. Trace your childhood back and see where you stand. Did you have a father? Did you not have a father? Did you have a father and he was emotionally absent? Did you have a father that molested you? Now, some of these girls, it's much more common than you people think. 1 in 4 girls have been molested, and 1 in 7 boys have been molested. So you've got a 25% chance of getting a husband that's had molestation, and the boys, you have a 1 in 25%. Maybe I said that wrong. But anyway, molestation is a lot more common than we think it is. And one of the saddest experiences, I've seen 2 that there's no recovery. One is rape. I have not seen ever in my counseling experience a girl recover from rape. They go on with their lives, they get counseling, they smile, they may get married, they may have a family and children and look, all put together. But deep inside that girl, there is a spot that can never be erased. A rape is a living death to a girl. Now, the other living death to a girl is for especially a father, but it could be a grandfather, it could be a brother, but a father's the worst damage. Here's a little girl that used to snuggle you, and you used to help in the bathtub and help her get her pajamas on, and brought her through the Disney World channel, and brought her through algebra in 6th or 7th grade, and she has depended upon you, and you're the only man in her whole world, and you molest that child and purposely touch her for sexual purposes. You have taken away her childhood. You have taken away most of her balanced sexuality. Now, the line between affection and the line between sex, she's not going to see ever again. You've destroyed it. And that little girl will be promiscuous at school. That little girl will try to get attention from the boys because she got attention from her dad. If she was naked or she did this or that for daddy, that's how she gets attention. It is damage that is not able to be reversed. And so if as a woman you've come through that experience, and or a rape, and or an absent father, you are extremely vulnerable for getting into a relationship where you're going to get abused. It's almost like you've been abused your whole life. What's new? Abuse me. How do you get out of it? That's probably why some of you are listening. And I'm going to go ahead and take this again from a little bit different point. Yeah, you can jump up and divorce him. And yeah, you're going to get stuck with 3 or 4 or 5 little kids that you can't afford. Yeah, he's probably not going to pay child support on time, and or the amount is going to be too low. And yeah, you're going to be working at McDonald's the night shift. Yeah, you're going to be paying $300 a week in child care. Yeah, you're going to be lonely. Yeah, you're going to be feeling that your life is shit. It is. You can't go anywhere. You can't go on vacation, do anything. Everything is budgeted. You're living in a small apartment. The kids are all piled up in 1 or 2 rooms. And there's just no money. Your car's broken down half the time. And what can I say? Here's, I think, what I can say. That, to me, is the last resort. Now, can a woman change a man? Boy, 6 of them didn't change me. Still the same idiot I was. But I think you can do this. I think you can do what my wife's mother did. The first time that her father slapped her, she said, "That ain't gonna fly. Homie, don't play that." I think you can sit down, spend some time with yourself, think about what you're risking, but no risk, no gain. If you want to be beat up the rest of your life, just bow your head and say yes. The Mormon Church continues to abuse women, and if you've got an abusing mate or husband, he's going to fit right in. He's going to fit right in. If you go to the bishop, 99% of the time, the bishop's going to blame it on you, the wife. Well, you know, he needs more sex, or he needs more food. You need to get up in the middle of the night and feed him, even if you're working. You know, the bishop's a man, and he's a truck driver, and boy, he's a real counselor. So I think you need to sit down and spend some private time with yourself. Don't depend upon your girlfriends. That can be, I think, one of the biggest mistakes. I know you girls like to talk and talk and talk, and that's normal. That's the way girls are. And she's going to say, kick him out, kick him out. And then your other two friends are going to say, you know, call the police. You know, don't listen to your girlfriends, because look at their lives. Look at their lives. And if you want to be like that, listen to them. Hey, you want to live like that? Listen to your girlfriends. I would sit down and spend some private time with myself, and I would explore, why was I vulnerable? Why am I vulnerable now? Why do I let someone physically, mentally, or emotionally abuse me? I'm a good human being. What's missing? And you're going to find out that childhood is basically what made you vulnerable. You didn't go looking for an abusive husband consciously. But because you were abused and starved for affection, you're going to take an abusive husband and pretend, oh, he won't be that abusive. And you knew from the get-go, because you girls will have a sixth sense about you, that this may not be good for me. This may not be good for my children. So spend some time alone with yourself and rethink your childhood, and then come up to your adulthood and say, okay, where am I now? Who am I now, and where am I going? What do I want to do for the rest of my life? This is a very important decision for a young girl and a middle-aged woman. To go into that abyss of poverty and watching your kids 24/7 and babysitters, and you know, the husband remarries an 18-year-old and she's Marie Osmond, and your kids are calling her mom now on visitations. Those are some tough roads. God, they're tough roads. If you think you're heartbroken now, wait till your kids come home and say, Mommy Marie told us we can't do that. Man, now you've lost your motherhood. I would think of who I am, and you're all going to come up with different decisions. Not everybody watching this video is going to, oh, I know what to do. I'm going to do this. That ain't going to happen, folks. Every one of you ladies are different. Your brains are different. Your bodies, your mind, your finances, your spirituality, your goals. You're all very different. Live your life. Don't listen to your girlfriends. Don't listen maybe to counselors unless you really trust them well. Listen to your heart and listen to your own mind and say, this is where I am. I don't want to be here, and I'm willing to be poor. I'm willing to fight the uphill battle. I'm a good person, and nobody is going to knock me around, and nobody is going to speak to me like that. And once you make that decision, I would certainly give your husband second and third chances. I would sit down and say, you know, we need to have a talk. All of us men know. As soon as you girls say that, we're in shit. We know that. And we don't want to have talks because it's always about us. But you need to sit down. You need to say, you know what? I've been reading. I've been thinking. And I've been kind of reevaluating my life. And since you're calm right now, I hope you can listen to me. But, you know, when you hit me and when you say the things you do, it really hurts me very, very deeply. And I'm not going to have that anymore. I'm a good person, and I have some talents and skills. I'm a good mother, and maybe I'm not as attractive as an 18-year-old, but you know what? I'm a good sex partner, and you and I have a good marriage, except when you decide to hit me. And I'm going to tell you, right now, the next time you hit me, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to do domestic violence. You may lose your job. The bishop may excommunicate you. And you're going to have to learn to get control of yourself, because I have now control of myself. And I'm not going to have somebody hitting me, beating on me, kicking me. That's shit. The next time you do that, you better hang up every phone in the world, because eventually I'll find a phone and I'll call the domestic violence hotline, and they will come and get you. They will put handcuffs on you. They'll put you in the back of the police car. You will be booked, and then if I bail you out, I might not bail you out. And then when we get to the court, you may spend a couple of years in jail. You don't hit people, whether it's me or the kids or other people in the community. You need to learn a lesson. I have taught myself many lessons that I'm not going to be abused again. So if you want to play that game, you write the book. You write the book. And if you want to punish me by not talking to me, or you want to punish me by, ignoring me, that's okay. I'm expecting you to retaliate, because you need an anger management class. And one of the things that will happen with domestic violence charges is you will be ordered by the court to go to a domestic violence class, and you will pass it or you will stay in jail. So you're going to learn to keep your hands off of me, and I'm not doing this to be mean. I'm not being retaliatory. What I'm being is a human being. You don't hit girls. My dad told me that when I was growing up. You don't hit girls. I've never hit any of my wives ever. Give him a warning. Give him a fair chance. And as soon as he starts to get angry, you go over by the phone and do one of these. Say, Mikey, I've told you what's going to happen. It's up to you. It's your life. Go for it. He may walk away. He may not. I had a fight with my wife in Massachusetts, my fourth wife. And I found out on the telephone bill that she had called an old boyfriend. And I'm not usually a jealous kind of a guy. I don't give a rat's ass who calls their boyfriends. But anyway, what I did mind is she lied to me. I looked at the phone bill, and I saw the UCLA university, and he worked there. And I said, hey, it looks like you called Tim. She says, well, no, I didn't call him. I said, well, the phone just dialed itself? We have a poltergeist phone in the house? I think so. Well, I was angry. Now, this is against the law now. This is against the law now. I was, 28. It wasn't then. It wasn't then. I went over to the phone. And I cut the phone line right off the phone. Then I took a hammer and I slammed the phone off of the wall, sitting on the kitchen floor. Well, the next day we made up, and she explained to me why she called, and that was the end of that. Well, I had to call the phone company. So the phone man comes out to the house and says, what's the problem? I said, I don't know, man. I was, watching TV and the phone fell off the wall in the kitchen. Well, let me look. He comes out. He looks, phone's in 1,000 pieces. The line is cut clean. He looks at me and he said, what happened here? And I said, well, I think your phone's a little defective. It just fell off the wall. He started laughing his ass off because he's a man. He knew. He knew. But the phone company put the phone back on and put the line back up. So nowadays, that's against the law. You cannot block a person from trying to leave a house. You can't lock doors and lock a person in. You can't really grab a person and hold them. And you can't block a phone that they want to call 911. That's all you have to do. Call 911 and say it's abuse, and they'll be out within a minute. And if there's marks on one or marks on the other one, usually the one that doesn't have the marks goes to jail. So domestic laws have changed very, very much. I remember I had I had one. In fact, the same one I tore the phone off with. I had one. Women are funny. They're cute as can be when they're angry. Men, when they're angry, I don't know. Maybe men don't have common denominators. But my little wife, she was so upset. I don't think it was me. It probably was. I don't even remember. This is so many years ago. And she started dancing, which is okay. Dancing is not against the law. You can flop and dance like a 2-year-old all you want. But then she started kicking the shit out of my mirrored closet doors. And I'm going, holy crap, So I just gently put her down on the ground, and I sat on her tummy, and I held her hands. And I said to her, sweet, loving wife. Maybe I didn't use that sentence. I don't know. So when you stop kicking the mirrors, I'll let you up. Oh, she's like a 2-year-old. So she stopped, and of course I just let her up. Those things today are probably abusive too. You can't hold a person like that. Now, if you've got a child or a wife that is mentally ill or is a danger to themselves, if she grabs a gun or a knife, you can grab that gun and a knife and you can put her down on the floor and you can call the police, and she's in violation of domestic violence laws. So be careful with your domestic violence laws. They're different in every state. And a lot of you that listen to me around the world, in your country, there's no such thing, but I'm speaking to mostly the American girls here. So be careful on domestic violence, ladies. Don't get yourself in a position where you lock him in the car and he can't get out, and now you've committed a crime. So give him a fair warning. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, but you better come up as a new woman and say, you know what? I'd rather be divorced. I'd rather have no money. I'd rather live in a shelter with my children than to have you touch me one more time. You can't touch me and think that this house and these cars and all of the nice things and the rings that you bought me allow you to hit me. You have nothing that allows you to hit me, period. And the law's on my side, and I'm telling you, I love you, I want to stay with you, we have a good marriage, other than you hitting me. You can be angry, you can be upset. What I do these days is I go outside. When I get upset, I go outside, and I love to drive. And I'll say, I didn't used to say, but in my old age, I will say now, I'm going out to cool down. And she'll say something like, well, I hope it's 10 below zero out there. That will help you a lot. Smart kids, smart women. So I'll go out and drive around for an hour or two, go down, get a Big Mac, get fatter, and then go home and, maybe quiet for 3 or 4 hours, but things go back to normal. But you have got to come to a point, like I did in the Mormon church. I knew, and, I'm a little emotional about this. I knew when I left the Mormon church I was going to lose my wife. I knew I was going to lose my children. I knew that I would be hated, called an apostate, made fun of. I knew it would be hard to find a job in Utah when I'm not LDS. I knew I was giving my new cars up. I knew I was giving my house up. And I knew my retirement and my future security and my health I was giving up. God, that is a heavy price, ladies. That is a heavy price. But you know what? I know there's some of you watching me that after you watch me, you're going to go like this. David was right. He gave up all of that because he was moral. He couldn't put his name on that mall. He couldn't put his name on marrying 14-year-old girls. He couldn't have his name associated with Mountain Meadows. And those are the prices that he was willing to pay, to be honest to himself. Never in a million years did I ever think I would have videos, 15,000 hits right now. I've been on 2.5 months. I never in a million years thought I would ever be able to be a human being again. I mean, I was almost homeless. And no money, no job, and my kids today don't talk to me. I've got 12 of my kids that are Mormons, and they shun me. And they do it on purpose. And it's hurtful. It gets better every year, but it's hurtful. I think I'm a great-grandfather right now. I think one of my granddaughters just had a baby. But I've got 43 grandchildren I don't get to see. So ladies, what I'm saying to you is this is a tough decision. When you put your life and your future on the line, you're saying to the whole world, I'm a worthy human being. I don't deserve to be hit, kicked, and beat on like some piece of wood. I'm a good person. I've always been a good person, and I'll be a good person after this. If I have to live in a homeless shelter, which most of you won't, and be with my children, then I'm going to stick up for myself. Because if you don't stick up for yourself, what do you think your girls are going to be like? They've seen this abuse. This looks normal to them. What do you think your boys are going to be like? Hey, dad punches him, I'm going to punch him too. You have got to break that vicious cycle, and you're going to be your own Jesus. You're going to sacrifice yourself for your children and for yourself. It would be a lie if I said I wasn't scared. It would be a lie if I didn't say I wondered how I would turn out. It would be a lie when I had health problems that I wasn't worried. It would be a lie if I didn't say, gee, I don't have a mate anymore and I'm lonely and I'd like to just go out and dance or have dinner with somebody. I got all these kids. I had custody of my kids. I had custody of 5 kids and I was single. So I never dreamed I would find somebody in the Philippines to marry. I knew in the United States, when you're fat, you're bald, and you're old, and you're poor, the girls don't line up. I told my wife the other day, I said, you know, I went on eHarmony.com, and God, I answered like 500 questions on eHarmony, and asked me a million things about my personality, and then I pushed the button, and it was computing, and I thought, gee, waiting to see some of these cute girls come up, and a big red sign came up that says, there's no matches for you. I go, what? Give me my money back. Beat you with the flood. There's no matches. I'm that weird? And they said, yeah, you are. You are. And I happened to be looking on Mormon or whatever it was, a Mormon website for singles. And I was looking, and, you know, I've been down through a million girls, and I thought, well, I'll just hit the Philippine button. I wouldn't marry a Filipino in a million years. And I hit it, and like 100,000 Philippine girls came up between 18 and 25 that were fabulously beautiful. And any American that'll marry me, come and get me. I go, oh my God. So anyway, I didn't marry an 18-year-old. I wanted a full-grown girl. She was 40 when I married her. I figured she was old enough to make a good, a real mature decision, and she'll never be able to blame me for child trafficking. She always says to me, I was desperate. I go, well, I said, don't let the door hit you in the ass. You know where the airport is, and you've got a new car, and there's millions of 18-year-old Filipino girls. I know where to get. I'm too old to even fly over there anymore. So, are you worth it? You're going to have to answer your own question. Are you worth it? I said to myself, yeah, I'm worth it. I'm getting out of this. I'm resigning from this church. It's destroying my ego, my personality, my self-esteem. Maybe I'll die an old man, live as an old man, and just die. And then, you know, I find a beautiful girl in the Philippines that will actually marry me, return missionary, and we adopted 2 children there in the Philippines, so now I have a new family. I immigrated them all over here to the United States, and she's worked hard, and she has bought the condo. She's got 2 brand new cars, and she has her life totally in order, and our children are straight A students. And I survived quad bypass surgery, and I just want you to know, I don't know your future. I didn't know my future. But I did know one thing. I did know one thing. You're not going to abuse me anymore. I've got a tape on that says the whipping boy has resigned. And a little bit of what I'm saying here today relates to that tape. I'm not going to have somebody say, you're not worthy. You can't go to the temple. You need to pay us money. You're not nice enough to your wife. You need to wear your garments at 180 outside, still wear your garment. I'm not going to be abused anymore. I decided to do some therapy for myself, so I got on the video, and I wasn't going to have anyone look at them. In fact, they weren't even public. They weren't even public. They were just for me and for the members of my family who shunned me. And I just started talking, and I felt better and better and better. Jeez, this is kind of fun. This is neat that I can speak. No one interrupts me. The mic just sits right there. I can drink my apple juice. And if someone wants to listen to me, they do. If they don't, they don't. How does that hurt me? Now, it's expanded. I'm doing advertising on my videos, and I'm making a little bit of money each month. I make twice as much as I made the last month, And I've made commitments to orphanage in the Philippines that I'm going to send that advertising money to feed children. How would I have ever known when I resigned from the church, and my life was in the doghouse? It was in the doghouse. Suicide. Suicide. How did I ever know I would come from suicide to sitting here and talking right now to 15,000 people? So ladies, you have to decide. Some of you are going to say, it's not worth it. That's okay. That's okay. You'd rather be hit. He doesn't hit you that often and you heal fast. That's fine. I'm not saying you have to leave those relationships. I'm just saying that every time you get hit, every time you have been physically, mentally, or sexually abused, your self-esteem slips away. And pretty soon you will be an old, angry, lonely old lady, because he will look at you eventually and feel guilty that he's beat you up so much. And he doesn't want to feel guilty. And what men do to avoid that guilt is divorce your ass anyway and go get an 18-year-old. So what do you got to lose? Stand up for yourselves. Be strong. Those of you that have faith in a God, use your God. Use your ability to get some support. Your mom, a girlfriend, but don't listen to the advice of your girlfriends. You make your own mind up. You decide who you are, and then you make the move to say, you don't touch me again, there's the telephone. You're going to go to jail. So my heart goes out. You know, I got some comments from ladies that have been abused. And as an old counselor, that triggers me to try to help. If I've helped, great. If I've made it worse, I'm sorry. Thanks.